Greetings, class. This is the third of a series of explanations about how the discussion assignments are created here in this course. We started out with talking about what they were, what the function was. Second, looking at the scoring rubric. And this third part is to look at some sample postings so that you can get a better idea of how these postings are graded. This is from the second posting. This is a sample rubric. There are several areas: timeliness, content and analysis, and grammar and professionalism. I'm not going to review this again because I reviewed this in the second part, but this is what I use to evaluate the postings. So a rubric is designed to inform you how you will be assessed, true or false. I'll count for 10 seconds and then I'll give you the answer. Okay, so the answer here is true, and hopefully you got that from reading or listening to the second part of this series. So how do I analyze a discussion posting? What I've done here is to give you a sample question from one of the assignments from last semester, and then 2 sample postings so that you can get an idea of how those are evaluated. So what's the role of the FTC, Federal Trade Commission? Compare that to the role of the Securities and Exchange Commission. How are they similar? How are they different? Be specific. So that was one of the questions. So what you'll do first is you'll read and think about the question, and it helps if you've read these questions before you start going through the resources so that as you go along you're thinking, okay, this is something she's going to ask about. So read and think about the question, take your notes, and then we have two student comments. The first student said the role of the Federal Trade Commission composes of 3 things: to prevent business practices that are anti-competitive or deceptive or unfair to consumers, to enhance informed consumer choice and public understanding of the competitive process, and to accomplish this without unduly burdening legitimate business activity. Then the student goes on to talk about the role of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, and then to answer the question about similarities and differences. They're both similar because they provide a sort of protection by giving information about the business in a fairly manner. They are different because, unlike SEC, FTC prevents business practices that are anti-competitive or deceptive. So that's a sample comment. There's a good citation in this one. The student uses quotation marks and cites the source. There is a basic effort to identify similarities. Here, they're similar because they provide a sort of protection given information about the business in a fairly manner, and then they're different. Points out some differences, but there could be more explanation of it. The second example, the student again gives a definition of the 2 different agencies. However, there's a potential problem of minimal paraphrasing because quotation marks aren't used appropriately, even though it's clear that this is copied from the website. And I'm going to try to get my pen to work here so I can point that out. Here, the student says this, I've underlined. So let me just highlight along here where the student says are anti-competitive or deceptive or unfair to consumers, to enhance informed consumer choice and public understanding of the competitive process, and to accomplish this without unduly burdening legitimate business activity. Well, this is directly from the website, cited word for word. Website is mentioned, but there are no quotation marks. So although I know where this is from, and I probably wouldn't call the student out on plagiarism other than a comment to the student, but this would be an example of plagiarism. It's minimal paraphrasing. They just took the language of the website and removed the quotation marks. The same is true on the information here about the role of the FTC. They copied that directly. They cited it, but they didn't use quotation marks. So that's a potential problem here. So they cited the resource, that's good, but they didn't use the quotation marks, which isn't good. And then they tried to identify the similarities, but didn't really do much in the way of explanation. And they also didn't talk at all about the differences. So the point really needed more explanation, and of course it needed to proofread in both of these examples. So as I'm reading through them, there are a couple of things. I've mentioned about the citation, the need to explain the point more. And then if you look at these, if these are in a discussion board thread where one's posted then another's posted, it's exactly the same information for the first part. So if you're posting, let's say you wrote this in your notes and this is what you're going to post, but you read what others have posted, don't repeat the same thing. Just add your section here at the bottom, the similarities and differences. And if somebody else said the same thing, then try to find a different similarity or a different difference, so that it's clear that you've read and thought about it and read the other students' postings as well. And let's see. The other point is, even better, find a credible website to support the information and then give more explanation. So that's kind of how I read through the postings to see, what works and what doesn't. And I hope this then helps you to see what it is you can do to get the most points for the discussion assignments. So, question to you. Discussion board postings earn fewer points if A, postings are relatively free of grammatical errors, B, postings refer to outside resources, C, points are not explained clearly, D, postings are copied and pasted without citation, and E, postings answer all the questions asked in the assignment. So fewer points, which thing would result in fewer points? Give you 10 seconds here. And the correct answer is C. Now I wanted to go through what is a good first comment to a discussion question. That means that this person was the first to post. They outlined what the FTC does. Note that in this answer, the answer doesn't exactly parrot what was said. Instead, they try to make sure, here, for example, this responder says, agency makes sure that businesses are behaving in an ethical standard, not trying to cheat or mislead consumers into buying their services or products. Okay, that's a paraphrase of what's on the website. And then in the other one on the SEC, they quoted from the SEC site using quotation marks, and then did a combination of writing their own words and then quoting from the website. And then in terms of the similarities, they talk about the well-being of society, the differences focusing on who the agencies actually protect. Now, they could have gone on to explain more, but this is a good first comment. It kind of initiates the discussion. The one thing that they didn't do clearly here is refer to the FTC website by the URL. Again, this is a judgment call for me, because I looked at this, and I would say, okay, this is from the FTC website. So I might dock a point for them not specifically referring to the URL, but overall, this is a good first comment. Okay, so thanks for listening, and I'll see you online.